stage, it's the usual fashion frenzy, but for the first time, the latest trends are being flaunted on the walls of one of China's most recognized sites. And this is the man behind it. Rolling out his eponymous label just 5 years ago, Phillip Lim's award-winning designs are now not only a staple of the young and fabulous, but revered by celebrities and critics alike. His classy, cool, pragmatic style and promise of affordable luxury has shaken up the New York fashion scene. It's also seen him join a wave of Asian American designers climbing the fashion ladder. This year, his label is expecting to rake in a cool $60 million. It's no surprise, then, that Fortune magazine now considers him one of the top 40 young business people of 2010. This week on Talk Asia, we go backstage at Phillip Lim's first ever Beijing fashion show and spend some time with the designer who promises to be the next big thing in Vogue. Phillip, welcome to Hong Kong. It's great to have you on the show today. Now, this is the 5th anniversary of 3-1 Phillip Lim. And from very modest beginnings, you now have 400 stores worldwide?
Yes, in 50 countries, and we also are opening our 5th store in Singapore.
So how do you view your position then on the global fashion stage?
I am just a student, taking it all in and, taking notes and doing my homework. And, I think if we think about 5 years, in human terms, we're just toddlers, and we're grateful to be in this position. But at the same time, every year, every moment is a learning experience.
How have you managed it, though, when so many others have, fallen by the wayside? The road to fashion greatness is littered with corpses.
Fashion victims, right?
Exactly.
No, I think people are asking me, what is the secret? And the secret is there is no secret. For myself, my personal journey, it's been a very fortunate one. And I always say to people, it's like the stars lined up and the skies opened up and the sun shined and I met the right people, was at the right time, and most importantly, I love what I do.
It's impossible to ignore this wave at the moment, really, of Asian American designers who are coming to the fore. I mean, of course, there's you, and there's, Jason Wu, and Alexander Wang, and Takun, among so many others. What do you think that is? I mean, is it something about the Asian work ethic? What is it?
I think the Asian work ethic is, it definitely plays a part in just that drive. But I think Asian society and Asian culture, it's very aesthetically driven. I think we've always been in fashion just behind the scenes. And I think, it's interesting because I'm always getting this question too, and we come from such different paths, and we took different roads to get there, and it just really happened to be coincidental in the timing for this rise, if you will. I think really it is deep-rooted in a culture that is very, that places visual aesthetics as a priority. Face, as they say.
Right. You are ethnically Chinese, born in Thailand.
Yes.
When you come back to Asia, does it stir something in you?
Yeah, it's so emotional, I think my parents were immigrants, so I guess I would be first generation growing up in California. And, I grew up in a duality where day it was Western culture, and then night it was completely Eastern culture. And I grew up fighting my Eastern heritage, my Chinese side. And as I get older, I have this innate yearning to, just realize my roots and get deeper in touch with it. And, every time I come to Asia, I'm just inspired, in awe, and just, I feel at home.
It's been a long time since you actually lived in Asia, though. When you were very, very young, your parents took you to Cambodia until the war broke out there. Even though you were so little, have they told you much about that time?
No, until recently, actually. I think 3 years ago, Los Angeles Times, they wanted to do a Mother's Day article, and it was the editor, Booth Moore. I was telling her about she was asking me about my upbringing. I was like, my mother was a seamstress, and she worked in factories, and she was like, wow, do you mind if we do a Mother's Day article on her? They sent a crew to her house in, Orange County, where it all began, and, she started to kind of go into the history of just escaping the wars and the refugees and having all the kids on a canoe, just getting them to safety. And God, the whole room was in tears because I never knew what it took for me to have this opportunity. And, now it's payback, I guess, My mother's become my daughter, and I've become her guardian. And so being here in Asia and doing the show in Beijing, it's a huge, huge honor, not only professionally but personally, because she's also never been to any of my fashion shows.
That's amazing. How has she never been?
I think it comes back to that Asian cultural aspect where you're never good enough, you know what I mean? It's like an A is not good enough, you have to be an A+, and I've never felt ready to receive her, and she is from China, so the best first chance is to bring her back to where she came from and realize that, look what your hands did.
When the family fled Cambodia, you ended up in the US. What was the allure of America?
I think, as with any immigrant, it's the possibilities. And you come here and maybe you can make something of yourself. I never take anything for granted. It's really taught me that point, that value.
And I think it's really interesting that your dad is a professional poker player.
Yeah, he was. He did many jobs, but I always remembered him so elegant. He had a very specific way about him, the things what he smoked, what time of day he woke up, the way he would dress himself. He was very eccentric, and my mother was the conservative one. And so I think I have that combination of my mother and my father.
So with your mum being a seamstress then, how much did you bug her?
Constantly. Constantly. I would bring home secondhand clothes or new clothes and take it apart and tell her to, like, okay, adjust it like this, please adjust it like that. And she's like, these are new clothes, you're crazy, you know how much this costs. But in the end, she would humor me. Also, again, I think I'm her favorite, that's why. I'm her baby, the youngest. It was just that kind of relationship growing up. And I went to school as a business major because, growing up, the only thing you could do was be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer or business person. And I chose business because it was like more general and maybe the least of the evils, specialized, and I could figure out what I wanted to do. And 3 years of studying at business, I dropped out because I just realized that this is not for me. I can't live this lie, So I stepped out.
It took you 3 years to work that out?
Yeah, it took you 3 years, just because at the same, again, it goes back to home values. It's like you had to save face, and my mother. I remember breaking the news to her that I dropped out of business school to take sewing classes. Wow,
Yikes.
Waterworks. But I didn't tell her that until I graduated. With a BA in home economics.
Didn't the deception drive you mad?
Oh, God. Oh, God. It goes back to the guilt, It was insane. It was leading a double life, But I had to pursue this. I didn't know why. It was very innate. It was this force that I couldn't stop. So I took an internship course just to finish my degree. At least I figured, okay, as long as I have a degree, I could be stamped as somewhat intelligent and educated, no matter